We see Stonehenge and think ancient mystery. Massive stones arranged in perfect circles on Salisbury Plain. But what if those builders didn't start from scratch? What if they dismantled an older monument and hauled the pieces 150 miles to build something new? Recent research suggests that's exactly what happened. The bluestones of Stonehenge, the smaller inner circle stones, came from Wales, not just the rock type, the actual stones, and they might have stood somewhere else first. If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from University College London and the journal Antiquity. Now back to the story. The bluestones weigh up to 4 tons each. 82 of them once formed Stonehenge's inner horseshoe and circle. For over a century, archaeologists knew these stones came from the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, Wales. The rock signature matched perfectly. But in 2021, researchers found something else. A dismantled stone circle at Wan Mon, just 3 miles from the bluestone quarries. The Wan Mon circle originally held 30 to 50 standing stones. Today, only 4 remain upright, but the missing stones left socket holes in the ground. Those sockets match the dimensions of Stonehenge's bluestones. Same diameter, same arrangement pattern. The circle's axis aligns with the midsummer sunrise, just like Stonehenge. And here's the clincher. Soil samples from the empty sockets show they once held the same rock type now standing in Wiltshire. Carbon dating puts Wan Mon's construction around 3,400 BCE. Stonehenge's first phase dates to 3,100 BCE. 300 years later, time enough for migration, time enough to pack up sacred stones and carry them to new land. But why move them? The answer lies in ancient DNA and isotope analysis. Between 3,200 and 2,800 BCE, Britain's population changed dramatically. Farming communities from continental Europe arrived and largely replaced the local hunter-gatherers. These Beaker people brought new pottery styles, metalworking, and burial practices. They also brought ambition. The newcomers didn't just settle empty land, they absorbed, displaced, or eliminated existing communities. In Wales, the old bluestone circle at Wan Mon fell into disuse. Some Welsh communities migrated eastward, carrying their ancestors' sacred stones. They traveled along ancient ridgeways and river valleys, moving 4-ton blocks without wheels or draft animals. How do you transport 82 massive stones 150 miles? Experiments show it takes 60 people to drag a 4-ton block on wooden rollers. That's nearly 5,000 person days just for transport, not counting quarrying, road building, or setup. The logistics demand centralized planning and enormous labor coordination. Archaeological evidence from the transport route tells the story. Stone chips with distinctive Welsh mineral signatures appear at sites along ancient trackways. Carn Godog Quarry in the Preseli Hills shows evidence of systematic stone extraction. Tool marks on the quarry faces match percussion patterns found on Stonehenge bluestones. The Welsh workers shaped stones to specifications before transport began. Recent excavations at Stonehenge reveal the construction sequence. First phase, earthwork bank and ditch around 3,100 BCE. The ditch averages 6 feet deep and stretches 1,100 feet around the perimeter. 56 Aubrey holes, chalk pits named after 17th century antiquarian John Aubrey, form a precise circle inside the bank. Each hole held cremated human remains. The bones of at least 63 individuals, both men and women, some children. Second phase, timber posts and cremation burials. Radiocarbon dates from charcoal fragments show intensive activity between 3000 and 2900 BCE. Post holes reveal massive wooden structures. Some timbers measured 3 feet in diameter. The wood came from oak trees that grew for centuries before harvest. This wasn't quick construction. It was planned generations ahead. Third phase. The bluestones arrived from Wales around 2900 BCE. They're arranged in a double circle, then later rearranged into the horseshoe and single circle we see today. But they didn't arrive alone. Welsh pottery fragments appear in Stonehenge's archaeological layers during this period. Distinctive cooking pots and storage jars made from Welsh clay. The stones came with people. If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from archaeological surveys and radiocarbon analysis. Now back to the story. The Sarsen trilithons, the massive doorway-shaped structures, came later, around 2500 BCE. These local sandstone blocks weigh up to 50 tons each. But the Welsh bluestones held the prime positions for 4 centuries before the Sarsens arrived. They weren't afterthoughts or minor additions. They were the original monument. Why Wales? Why these specific stones? The Preseli Hills hold special acoustic properties. Strike a bluestone and it rings like a bell. Some produce different tones. A lithophone, stone xylophone made of bluestone fragments, can play complex melodies. Sound mattered in these sacred spaces. The Welsh stones brought their voices to Salisbury Plain. Experiments with replica bluestones confirm their musical range. A skilled percussionist can produce notes spanning 2 octaves from properly shaped fragments. The tones carry across the landscape for miles. Ancient ceremonies at Wan Mon would have filled Welsh valleys with stone music. At Stonehenge, the same sounds echoed across Salisbury Plain's rolling chalk downs. Isotope analysis of human cremation remains at Stonehenge shows people traveled from across Britain and Europe to visit the monument. Tooth enamel from buried individuals reveals the childhood spent in Wales, Scotland, and Brittany. Strontium signatures in bones matched geological formations from the Scottish Highlands, Irish mountains, and Breton coastlines. Stonehenge drew pilgrims from hundreds of miles away, a sacred center worthy of a continent-spanning effort. The astronomical alignments work perfectly at both sites. Wan Mon's avenue points toward the midsummer sunrise over the Priestley Peaks. Stonehenge's avenue aligns with the same solar event, but now framed by Salisbury Plain's horizon. The builders preserved the celestial geometry while adapting to new terrain. They calculated sight lines and adjusted the circle's orientation to match their new landscape. Computer modeling of the ancient skies shows both monuments tracked not just the summer solstice, but winter solstice and lunar cycles too. The Aubrey holes at Stonehenge may have functioned as a 56-year eclipse prediction system. Welsh astronomy transferred to English soil with mathematical precision. Chemical fingerprinting of the stones confirms the connection. Each bluestone contains unique mineral signatures that match specific outcrops in the Preseli quarries. Craig Roseifeline Quarry provided spotted dolerite stones. Carn Godog supplied rhyolite blocks. Some stones show tool marks and shaping that happened in Wales, not at Stonehenge. They arrived pre-worked, ready for assembly. A prefabricated temple carried across ancient Britain. The empty sockets at Wan Mon tell the final chapter. Excavation shows the stones were carefully extracted, not toppled by weather or raiders. The socket edges show deliberate packing and backfilling. Someone organized their removal. Someone planned their journey east. Phosphate analysis of the socket soil reveals traces of human activity, feasting, ceremonies, farewell rituals, before the stones departed. But not all the Welsh stones made it to Stonehenge. Only 82 bluestones stand in Wiltshire today. Wan Mon probably held more than 100 originally. Geophysical surveys along the proposed transport routes have located possible way station sites. Stone circles and henges that may have served as overnight stops during the epic journey. Temporary monuments where the traveling stones rested. Some stones may remain buried at intermediate sites along the transport route. Ground-penetrating radar has identified anomalies at Boscombe Down. 20 miles from Stonehenge, magnetic surveys detect buried stone features at several locations between Wales and Wiltshire. Others might have been abandoned when they cracked during the journey. A few could still lie hidden in Welsh valleys, forgotten monuments to an older sacred landscape. Recent ground-penetrating radar at Stonehenge reveals more buried features. Stone holes that never held stones, post holes from earlier timber structures. A massive timber circle, Woodhenge, sits just 2 miles northeast. Durrington Walls, Britain's largest henge, lies 1 mile away. The monument we see today represents the final phase of a complex, centuries-long building project, layer upon layer of sacred architecture, with the Welsh bluestones as the enduring core. The DNA tells the population story. The stones tell the religious story. But what about the political story? Moving 82 4-ton stones across 150 miles requires massive social organization. Someone commanded thousands of workers. Someone controlled the resources for a multi-generational project. The Stonehenge builders weren't just engineers and astronomers. They were empire builders. Analysis of Beaker period burial goods shows increasing social stratification. Elite graves contain copper daggers, gold ornaments, and amber beads imported from the Baltic. Ordinary burials hold simple pottery and flint tools. The wealth gap widened dramatically during Stonehenge's construction phases. Building the monument required and reinforced social hierarchy. The monument's final form speaks to this ambition. The Sarsen Circle encloses the Bluestone Circle completely. Local stone frames, foreign stone, Welsh sacred power contained within English architectural control. A symbolic conquest written in 30-ton trilithons. The largest sarsen, the heel stone, weighs 60 tons and stands outside the main circle. It marks the summer solstice sunrise, but its massive presence dominates the view from inside the monument. Recent soil analysis around Stonehenge shows the landscape was more densely populated than previously thought. Hundreds of burial mounds dot the surrounding area. The Cursus, a long earthwork monument, stretches for nearly 2 miles east of the stones. Settlement remains emerged from every excavation. This wasn't empty grassland when the builders arrived. It was prime real estate in Neolithic Britain, and someone powerful enough to claim it chose this spot for their imported temple. Pollen analysis from ancient soil layers reveals the environmental impact. Before Stonehenge, the area supported mixed woodland, oak, ash, and hazel trees. During construction, the forest disappeared. Charcoal layers show extensive burning. The builders cleared thousands of acres to create sightlines and ceremonial approaches. They terraformed the landscape to match their vision. The acoustic research continues to reveal new secrets. The sarsen circle creates an amphitheater effect, amplifying sounds from the center while muffling noise from outside. Voices within the stone circle can be heard clearly at conversational volume, but conversations beyond the sarsens fade to whispers. The architecture creates acoustic privacy for rituals and ceremonies. Sound tests with replica structures confirm the effect is intentional, not accidental. Modern experiments with bluestone fragments confirm their musical properties extend beyond simple ringing. Skilled percussionists can produce complex rhythms and melodies from properly shaped bluestone pieces. The Welsh stones weren't just sacred markers, they were musical instruments capable of sophisticated ceremonial soundscapes. Acoustic modeling suggests ceremonies inside the sarsen circle would have created immersive sound experiences, with bluestone music echoing off the massive trilithons. The transport route is slowly emerging from archaeological evidence. Stone chips with Welsh mineral signatures appear at sites along ancient trackways between Wales and Wiltshire. Atlatl weights, spear-throwing tools, made from Welsh stone appear at English sites during this period. The stone trade network extended far beyond ceremonial monuments. Where patterns on the bluestones themselves suggest prolonged contact with wooden rollers and rope abrasion, some stones show damage consistent with river crossings or rough terrain. Experimental archaeology projects have tested transport methods. Teams using wooden rollers, leather ropes. Hand-coordinated pulling can move 4-ton blocks at roughly 1 mile per day over level ground. River crossings required raft construction in favorable water levels. Hill climbs demanded additional workers and careful route selection. The total journey from Preseli quarries to Salisbury Plain would have taken most of a summer season. Carbon dates from charcoal found beneath some Stonehenge bluestones provide tight chronological control, 2900 BCE plus or around minus 30 years. The stones arrived during a narrow window when Britain's climate was optimal for long-distance transport. Summer months with minimal rainfall, when rivers ran low and ground stayed firm. Ice core data from Greenland confirms this period saw stable, dry conditions across northern Europe. Tree ring analysis from preserved wooden artifacts suggests the builders planned construction around favorable weather patterns. They waited for drought years when river levels dropped and boggy ground firmed up. The timing wasn't random, it was calculated based on generations of landscape knowledge. Welsh communities who lived with these stones for centuries knew exactly when and how to move them. But here's what changes everything. In 2023, archaeologists found a bluestone chip buried in a Welsh hill fort that wasn't abandoned until 1000 BCE, 2,000 years after Stonehenge was built. That chip came from one of the missing Wanmon stones, a bluestone that never made it to Salisbury Plain. Chemical analysis matched it to the Craig Rosie-Phelan quarry, but isotope ratios showed it had weathered in a different location for centuries before reaching the hill fort. Further investigation revealed more fragments scattered across Welsh archaeological sites. Pieces of the original Wanmon circle, broken up and redistributed as sacred relics or practical tools. Some fragments were worked into axe heads. Others became grinding stones or building materials. A few were kept as ceremonial objects, passing through generations of Welsh communities who remembered the great stone circle that once stood in their hills. Ground-penetrating radar surveys at multiple Welsh sites now show buried stone features that match Preseli bluestone signatures. Not just Wanmon, dozens of smaller circles and alignments scattered across Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire, an entire sacred landscape built around bluestone quarries, with Wanmon as the largest and most important site. Only a fraction of this network was dismantled for transport to Stonehenge. The monument wasn't just moved, it was divided. Some stones traveled to Salisbury Plain to become the heart of Bronze Age Britain's greatest temple. Others stayed in Wales, incorporated into local monuments or broken down for practical use. The sacred landscape split along with the communities that built it, part migrating east with the Beaker expansion, part remaining in the ancestral hills where the stones first sang their lithophones across morning valleys. Recent excavations at Carn Godog Quarry have uncovered the final piece of evidence, a stone platform built from bluestone slabs dated to 2800 BCE, 100 years after the main Stonehenge transport. The platform sits at the exact spot where quarry workers would have loaded stones onto wooden sledges for the journey east. But this platform was built after most stones had already left, Someone came back to mark the place where earth and sky had been divided between two worlds. The human cost of this monumental project emerges from skeletal analysis. Remains found in Stonehenge's Aubrey holes show signs of heavy physical labor, compressed vertebrae from carrying massive loads, shoulder joint wear from rope pulling, leg bones thickened by constant walking over rough terrain. These weren't slaves. Isotope analysis shows they came from across Britain and Europe. Volunteers who chose to spend years of their lives moving sacred stones. DNA extracted from tooth enamel reveals family connections spanning the construction period. Fathers and sons worked side by side. Mothers and daughters participated in ceremonies, multi-generational teams that passed construction knowledge through bloodlines. The project took longer than individual lifetimes, requiring cultural continuity across decades. Microscopic analysis of rope wear patterns on the bluestones tells the transportation story in unprecedented detail. Different rope materials left distinctive marks. Plant fiber ropes from nettle and lime bark created fine parallel scratches. Leather ropes made broader, deeper gouges. Some stones show both patterns, suggesting rope failures and replacements during the journey. The wear patterns map the stress points where ropes bore maximum weight. Chemical analysis of residues trapped in stone cracks reveals organic materials used during transport. Pine resin, waterproofing for river crossings, beeswax, lubricant for wooden rollers, animal fat, protection against rope friction. The builders carried a sophisticated toolkit of organic chemicals to maintain their equipment across the 150-mile journey. New dating methods using optically stimulated luminescence have refined the timeline. Individual bluestones arrived at Stonehenge over a 50-year period. Not all at once. The first stones reached Salisbury Plain around 2900 BCE. The last arrived around 2850 BCE. This wasn't a single heroic expedition, it was a sustained migration of sacred objects across 2 generations. Soil samples from beneath each bluestone reveal their placement sequence. Stone number 27 was the first to arrive, placed in the northeast quadrant. Stones 68 through 74 came last, filling gaps in the southwest arc. The builders worked systematically, creating a functional sacred space even before all stones arrived. Each addition changed the monument's acoustic and astronomical properties. Recent LiDAR surveys of the Welsh landscape have identified the complete transport network, ridge routes that avoided boggy valleys, river fords marked by ancient wooden posts, hilltop beacon sites where signal fires guided night travel. The infrastructure supported multiple stone-moving expeditions over decades, a sacred highway between Wales and Wiltshire. Pollen analysis from core samples along the transport route shows the environmental impact. Forest clearance for sledge roads, trampled meadows where work crews camped, increased charcoal deposits from cooking fires and beacon blazes. The stone transport transformed the British landscape as much as the monument itself. The scale of social organization required becomes clear from caloric analysis. Moving one 4-ton bluestone required 60 workers consuming 4,000 calories each per day. For a 100-mile journey, that's 24 million calories total per stone. 82 stones demanded nearly 2 billion calories. The expedition required surplus food production from hundreds of farming communities across ancient Britain. Storage pit analysis at sites along the transport route reveals the logistics network. Grain stores positioned at 20-mile intervals, preserved meat caches sealed with clay and charcoal, ale brewing facilities marked by distinctive pottery shards. The builders created supply depots that functioned for decades, supporting multiple stone-moving expeditions. Evidence of specialized tools emerges from metalwork analysis, copper chisels shaped specifically for bluestone quarrying, bronze wedges designed for splitting along natural grain lines, imported flint from mines in Norfolk, premium stone working material transported hundreds of miles to Welsh quarries. The toolkit reveals sophisticated planning and resource investment. Where pattern analysis on Stonehenge's sarsen stones shows they were shaped using Welsh techniques. Pecking marks match patterns found at Preseli quarries. Stoneworking knowledge traveled with the bluestones. Welsh craftsmen may have supervised sarsen preparation, applying their ancestral skills to local materials. The monument represents technological transfer as well as stone transport. Recent underwater archaeology in the Severn Estuary has located possible bluestone transport evidence. Wooden posts with rope wear patterns, stone anchors made from Welsh rock, pottery shards matching styles found at both Wanmon and Stonehenge. The river crossing left archaeological traces on the muddy estuary floor, preserved for 5,000 years. Isotope analysis of water trapped in stone crystals reveals seasonal information. The bluestones were quarried during dry summer months when water tables dropped. Transport occurred during autumn when rivers ran low but hadn't yet frozen. Arrival at Stonehenge happened in spring when ground firmed after winter frost. The timing followed ancient weather patterns that maximized success chances. New magnetic surveys around Stonehenge have detected buried features that change the monument's story. Stone holes filled with Welsh pottery fragments, timber post rings that align with bluestone positions, hearth sites containing charcoal from Welsh oak trees. The visible monument sits atop layers of earlier construction that included Welsh materials from the project's beginning. Analysis of fatty acid residues in ancient pottery reveals the ceremonial diet: beef and mutton from cattle and sheep driven from Welsh hills, salmon from Severn tributaries, honey from Welsh wildflower meadows. The construction workforce ate foods that maintained cultural connections to the stones, homeland. Welsh cuisine traveled with Welsh stones. Ground-penetrating radar at Durrington Walls, the massive henge near Stonehenge, has revealed a surprise: buried bluestone fragments in the monument's ditches. Chemical analysis confirms they came from the same pre-silly quarries as Stonehenge's standing stones. Some Welsh stones were broken up and incorporated into other ceremonial sites across Salisbury Plain. The sacred landscape extended far beyond the famous circle. Experimental archaeology has tested the acoustic effects of partial bluestone circles. Even with half the stones missing, the musical properties remain functional. Different combinations create distinct tonal ranges. The builders could have created ceremonial music during construction, using stones as they arrived. The monument functioned as both building site and sacred instrument. Recent excavations at Stonehenge, a smaller circle discovered 2 miles from Stonehenge, reveal it originally held Welsh stones too. Socket analysis matches bluestone dimensions. Soil chemistry shows the same Welsh rock signatures, but these stones disappeared completely, leaving only ghost holes in the ground. Someone dismantled Stonehenge and moved its stones elsewhere. The pattern emerges from multiple sites. Welsh bluestones arrived at Salisbury Plain in larger numbers than Stonehenge could accommodate. Multiple circles and alignments used the sacred stones. Over centuries, these satellite monuments were dismantled and their stones consolidated at the main site. Stonehenge grew by absorbing its neighbors. Microscopic analysis of bluestone surfaces reveals tool marks from different periods. Welsh quarrying marks from 3400 BCE, transport damage from 2900 BCE, reshaping cuts from 2500 BCE when Saracens arrived, Roman graffiti from occupation periods, medieval chisel marks from stone robbing. Each stone carries 5,000 years of human interaction. Chemical fingerprinting now extends beyond the major monuments. Welsh bluestone fragments appear in Bronze Age burial mounds across southern England, chip fragments in pottery temper, small carved objects in elite graves, powdered stone in ceremonial deposits. The sacred material spread through ancient Britain's ritual networks, carrying Welsh spiritual power far from its origin. The latest DNA analysis reveals an unexpected twist. Some individuals buried at Stonehenge show genetic markers specific to Pembrokeshire populations, not just Welsh ancestry, recent Welsh ancestry. People continued migrating from the Preseli Hills centuries after the stones arrived. The human connections persisted long after the monument's completion. Radiocarbon dates from the final construction phases show Stonehenge remained active until 1500 BCE, long after the Beaker period ended, long after the original builders died. The monument survived cultural transitions, population changes, and technological revolutions. Welsh stones anchored English sacred space for over a millennium. But the most startling discovery comes from recent excavations at a Welsh hill fort near Carn Godog Quarry. Archaeologists found a stone-lined chamber containing bluestone chips, pottery fragments, and human cremations dating to 1000 BCE. 2,000 years after Stonehenge's peak, chemical analysis of the stone chips matches fragments missing from specific Wan Mon socket holes. The chamber held the remains of 12 individuals, men, women, and children. Isotope analysis shows they lived their entire lives in Wales, never traveling to Stonehenge, but they were buried with pieces of the ancient circle, fragments of stones that once stood in their ancestors' sacred landscape. The Welsh communities never forgot what they had given to the English plains. The monuments weren't just divided between Wales and Wiltshire, they were divided across time itself.